We're a team of teenagers with attitudes.
Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers! Mighty Morphin Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers! You mighty Morphin Power Rangers!
Hello, Monsters with Attitude, and welcome to another stream. I'm Michael, your host, and joining me is my co-host, Mr. Nathan Marchand. Say hello, Nathan.
Hello, Nathan. Obvious joke is obvious. Is this
Obvious
the
joke
first
is
time
obvious?
the name of the name of the show actually makes sense now?
Kind of, yeah. And also joining us is some more Monsters with Attitude from the crew. We've got Mr. Eric Stolp of Bearded Kaiju Unboxing and Reviews.
What's going on, everybody?
We've got Mr. Joe Myers of Married to Kaiju.
Hello.
Good sir.
Hi, friends.
Got the Alaskan assassin himself, Mr. Eric.
Yo,
That
what's up?
sounds like his pro wrestling name.
Yeah,
And
the
last,
last kaiju.
and last but certainly not least, the man with the baby face that will break 1,000 hearts,
Breaks
Mr.
my
Adrian Settle.
Oh,
Kaiju family. Adrian, you shaved again. That's what was
I
different.
know. I hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's and
I
I
hate when he
didn't.
does
Wow,
that.
for the first time.
I FaceTime with you every night and I see a beard. You can't just throw a clean shaven baby face on us like that.
That's
A
true.
little
You know,
buck shadow.
if we
A
were
little bit.
playing like pickup basketball or something, we could literally play beards versus baby faces because there's exactly 3 of each.
Yeah. I prefer shirts and
Or
skins.
men's
but-
versus boys.
I prefer shirts and
Wow.
All right.
So we're playing against the bearded ladies. I see.
Yes.
skins. Oh, okay.
Oh, whoa, I didn't see all that now.
Well, gentlemen, thank you guys for joining us for another stream. We're going to be, as you probably have guessed from that epic intro that I totally didn't rip from the internet, we're going to be talking about the 30th anniversary of Power Rangers. And my God, I mean, I have some familiarity. I would say, but right behind Godzilla, like the Power Rangers franchise is like my other love. I love a lot. I love all kinds of things like Transformers, TMNT, but Power Rangers and Godzilla. I mean, come on, guys! Like, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in pop culture.
Mhm.
Oh, there's my voice again. Okay, thanks, Eric.
I hear feedback.
Nobody really likes hearing himself talk.
Well, no, not always. You're the only one that likes to hear himself talk. But
it's because I'm not boring.
well, anyway, so gentlemen, thank you so much for being on here. I know we've got a lot of ground to cover as per the usual, but before we do that, we have to say hello to the chat. And starting with Jake Hembrick. Hello, Jake. How are we
Hey,
doing, good
Jake.
sir?
Hey,
Hey,
Jake,
Jake.
great to see you.
We've got Gamera Sith. How are we doing, Gamera Sith?
What's going on?
Life
Gamera
is
Sith.
lovely. Our friend Alec from Hawaii. Aloha. Life is lovely.
Hello.
So we have the continental United States represented as well as Alaska and Hawaii. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what up?
We've also got Michael Hambrick. Hello, Michael. How are we doing,
Oh.
good sir?
There's another
Hello.
handbrake.
Yes. And we've
Quite.
got Tom Smith. Tom, how are you
What's going on,
doing?
Tom?
And of course, the Queen herself
Fabulous Empire.
of the Fabulous Empire. Of course.
What's going on,
And I think that's all we. Oh no, we've got
one
Gaming for
more.
Dummies. Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Adrian. This is Felipe.
Felipe.
What's up, Felipe?
Oh man. So okay. So this is gonna be a fun stream, guys. So I want to go ahead and just get into it, just because we got a lot of ground to cover today. So let me go ahead and pull up my slides here. So the big question, we all know that Power Rangers is a very nostalgic property for a lot of us. But but some of us only have like that nostalgia for maybe the MMPR, or maybe we progressed a little bit further in our fandom. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of throw a softball question at everybody and say, how long did you stick with the franchise? Did you stick around? Did you go a little further past MMPR, or did that kind of stop it for you? So let's start with Eric, since he's right below me.
Okay. Yeah. So I basically stopped after Mighty Morphin. That was the bread and butter. That's what I grew up on.
Sure.
And I loved that and everything. And then obviously I got older. I kind of fell out of it. I got reintroduced to it at Lost in Space or Galaxy.
Lost
one
Galaxy.
Of the two.
I was
Yeah.
gonna
Lost
say,
Galaxy.
Lost in Space is a different show.
Yeah, one of those two, the space ones. I watched both of those, and then later on I watched Ninja Storm, and then I watched Dino Fury, sprinkled in there. But that's about the extent of my viewing for Power Rangers. But yeah, I always just kind of go back to the original. It's so nostalgic for me, just because that's what I grew up on, and talking to friends, in school, it was all about, the Power Rangers and, getting this and getting that and stuff like that. And that was the thing that we talked about the most. And, I just kind of lost touch after I kind of grew up and stuff like that. And it just kind of got to be boring for me a little bit. And it just kind of fell out of it. So, but yeah, I always go back to the originals. I actually just started watching the originals again to refresh myself, because honestly, I haven't watched any Power Rangers for so long, especially the originals. I watched it like the one time through, and that was it. So me rewatching it, it's been 20 years since I've watched this stuff, and a lot of it's good to re-see and stuff like that, or maybe not even realize that something happened, but re-seeing it now, it's like, oh man, that did happen and stuff, or seeing things that I thought that I remembered that were more extravagant than they were, but I watch them now and it's like, oh, well, that's kind of lackluster. So it's been interesting to rewatch it and everything. It's definitely been a trip down memory lane, but yeah, mostly my extent is Mighty Morphin for sure. What do you,
Adrian?
For me, I kind of the same as Eric, I think, but I made it a little bit further than he did. I did get, well, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how I missed Zeo. I don't know how that happened. But I think all the way up to Dino Thunder. Mistaken. That was the last series I was really like kind of into. And once after I watched Dino Thunder, I was like, okay, I think I started getting more interest, started getting into Dragon Ball Z, deeper into Godzilla, things like that. So really just other things had my attention. Not really that I didn't love watching Power Rangers. There's just other things that stirred my interest. And then Power Rangers really wasn't something we were talking about in school or anything. I just kind of felt out of love with it. But getting ready for this podcast and everything, being able to go back and rewatch everything, it's honestly reminding why I did love Mighty. Absolutely great. But that was I stopped. I kind of want to go back and maybe rewatch everything eventually. But as of right now, I am happy. But as of right now, like Eric said, my bread and butter is definitely Mighty. What about you, Nathan? That's pretty self-explanatory, but
Right. Watched it regularly for most of the first season of MMPR. Then I fell off, and I would check him on it on occasion, at least during the Fox era of the franchise. And I had friends who watched it on the regular, and they would tell me all the things, and all I kept thinking is, wow, things got crazy after I stopped watching. And I didn't really actually get back into it until Michael suggested, because of some stuff we were talking about for the Monster Island Film Vault, one of my other podcasts, to give Power Rangers in Space a watch. And then I watched that, really loved that show. And then because of the Power Trip, I've now seen everything.
Yeah. Jojo, what's up? What about you?
So I watched all of MMPR. That is like the big nostalgia one for me, the one I really grew up on. So all of all of MMPR, Zeo, Turbo, In Space, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed and Time Force. After Time Force is when I kind of started drifting away. I kind of drifted in like season 3. It kind of started to lose my interest a little bit, but it brought me back with Zio. And I can't say I've seen a lot of like the newer stuff of the past, 15 years. I did kind of get back into it again with Dino Fury. I thought that was fun, and Beast Morphers was good. It's just, I don't know. There's just something about that original cast and that original run in the '90s, kind of like the quote unquote Zordon era, that is really, it's real special to me. And it was nice to see, the casts kind of continue. I know there was a lot of shakeups throughout later seasons and stuff, but yeah. So mostly my go-to is always MMPR. That's my favorite. That's the one I really collect, and Zio too. But yeah, MMPR mostly.
I bet you're really excited for those 3-0 Zio figures that are going to be coming. I mean, if they
Yeah, I
if they
can't wait.
continue the line.
The Gold Ranger, not the not to throw shade at the triplets, because we all know that they'll come after you because they're OGs. But, man, when Austin came back as Zio Gold, that was just freaking awesome to me.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to get the 3-0 Gold Ranger, because that's my favorite suit of all time.
Oh yeah, it's gonna.
We have
When they eventually do that, when it's gonna be great.
Mhm.
We have a listener who loves that suit as well. He says it's a friggin' tank.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Chris,
Chris Cook,
our
yeah.
Canadian bacon friend. Our Canadian
Yes.
bacon.
He's gonna hate us so much.
No, he doesn't. He loves us. Hey, Aaron, what about you?
So I was looking back at all the shows, and I actually watched a lot more than I thought I did. I watched most of whatever they showed on the Fox era, but the ones that really caught my eye whenever they were airing were, of course, Mighty Morphin, and then there were also Space and Lost Galaxy. Those are the 3 that I really bought toys for back in the day, and I think I still have a few of them left, but I used to have a bunch of them. But of course, Mighty Morphin was just always my favorite. That's the one I remember the most, and that's the one I watched the most when I was a kid.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it all kind of started with MMPR. Now I grew up and I watched the show as it was on, like back in 1994. Like I still have the old videotapes where my parents, got up on Saturday morning or throughout the day when I couldn't get home in time from school to watch it, and they recorded it for me, so that I have those I have those old tapes still yet to this day. But I fell off around Lost Galaxy is where I fell off. Like right after In
same.
Space into Lost Galaxy, that's where I kind of fell off. And then I did not pick back up on the franchise until many years later, when during COVID, when I got bored and wanted something to watch to kind of distract, to try to distract my brain from everything that was going on. I got back into it, and I started watching these seasons. I watched all the way through, and then I think eventually, I might have gotten to Time Force before I had approached Nathan to do a podcast about it. And
Well,
so
you
to
were
this
already
day,
well onto your power trip, huh?
yeah. So that's when we started the podcast, was around that time. Because I just fell in love with the franchise again. I fell in love with the themes and the characters, and wanted to talk about it. So that was kind of where I was at. But so there have been a lot of characters in the franchise that we've all loved. Some of us love JDF, some of us don't. Not throwing shade. Some of us don't. But there have been a lot of beloved characters in the franchise. So I wanted to ask, out of the characters that you have been able to watch, like which Ranger, doesn't matter what season it's from, which Ranger do you most identify with? Either their personality traits, their life circumstances, just the way they are as characters and the way they're written. Like what are those characters you most identify with? And I want to go backwards now and start with Aaron, if you have an answer.
Oh yeah. I actually had two, and they're both from Mighty Morphin. So the first one kind of was Billy, which is really like you look when like back in that era, back in the '90s, everyone wanted to be either the Red Ranger or the Green Ranger or the White Ranger. Um, but then like part of me kind of identified with Billy just because he was like the smart one, and like I was a bit of a geek back then. I mean, who would have guessed I was a geek back in the '90s? But like,
Who knew?
yeah, but no, I just
Nerd.
thought it was always cool that there was this badass who was also smart. Like he wasn't any less for his genius. It was just like he does martial arts, and he's super technical and everything. And I thought that was really cool. Honestly, I think that was partly why I wanted to excel in school myself, because I thought I could be like, oh, I could be a Power Ranger like that, you know. And then there's the second one is Tommy, just because of how he was portrayed in the beginning. You know how he's the new kid in town. I moved when I was in elementary or like middle school or something, something super early. Um, didn't feel like I really like I had friends, but I didn't really feel like I fit in because
Right.
like him, he was kind of thrust into this already well established friend group, and he was like that there's the sole reason why there's like the whole sixth ranger trope. It's like the new person, like
Yeah.
he's kind of different but the same,
Mhm.
and he's just got a lot of those relatable issues to work out. And I just um that's why these days Tommy is my favorite one from that era.
Mhm. Mhm. Jojo, what about you?
I I identified the most with I had to pull back the Zach part right there. I was about to make jokes. I identify a lot with Zach. There's actually two of them that I feel like I kind of emulate or what have you. It's Zach. I'm loud. I try to be the prankster and the goofball and whatever. But for those of you that don't know, my second job for about 15, 16 years has been a bouncer at a bar on top of my normal career for the post office. And, you know, being a bouncer, you can't, well, at least for me, I'm not the one that's going to rush in. I'm not going to be a loud mouth. And I'm only going to fight when I have to. I'm not going to look for a fight, but if there is one, I'm going to try and do my best to end it. And so in that case, I also feel like I identify kind of with Jason, the Red Ranger. I kind of feel like he always had like a quiet strength and was slow to anger, which I'm not always slow to anger, but I am slow to a fight. And so I just kind of feel like those two. I can be a goofball and funny and joke around and be a prankster, but when it's time to evaluate a situation, and um, I won't look for a fight, but I will end one. And I feel like that is what Jason does. So both of them.
Nathan, you're up.
When I was a kid watching MMPR, I was a big fan of Jason and Tommy, but the older I get, I find myself actually connecting a lot with Andros from In Space. One, he's an older brother, and I know what it's like to be an older brother and to feel a bit of responsibility with taking care of the younger siblings. And also with the journey he goes on to learn to trust people again, because he closed himself off except to, oh dang it, I need to turn in my nerd card. I can't remember the computer's name suddenly.
Deca?
Deca, yeah, except with Deca, but once he gets another team, he's resistant to it, and then he slowly over the course of the season opens up to him, and then they really coalesce as a team as time goes on. Plus, I just love In Space.
Yeah.
Top tier.
Adrian?
Top tier.
So when I was a kid, it was always Jason when I was a kid, and I was probably biased because I did love red. Red's my favorite color now, still. And then, of course, when Tommy got introduced, I really loved Tommy. But going back and rewatching Power Rangers again, honestly, I do see myself more as Jason, to be honest, because all the leadership qualities I got a lot of that from Jason. So I definitely have to say that I identify with the best Ranger, the best Ranger myself.
What's up, Adrian, my man?
What a flippy floppy guy!
Adrian!
Wow.
I always
Wow.
knew you were my favorite.
It's almost like he did this just because he knew Joe was going to be on the
I
stream.
know, right?
ASJ for life, mother.
Oh.
What about you, Eric?
I mean, Jason is the only Ranger to ever beat Tommy one-on-one.
Let's start this, Joe. Let's start this, Joe. It's really hard because I think there's qualities from like, especially the originals, from like Billy, Jason, and Zach. There's a little bit of something that each of them had that kind of resonates to me. Billy being like the nerd and stuff like that, like, you know, I was always in the nerdy stuff and everything. Zach's always the goofy one and everything. I like to joke around. I like to play and stuff like that. And then, you know, Jason is the leader and stuff like that. And I've grown into being a leader, especially like for my work and stuff like that. I've been in leadership roles and stuff like that. And it's just, you know, I can understand, you know, where he comes from when he has to, you know, take that responsibility with telling, you know, his group members what to do or whatever. Like, I can do that. But none of those are actually my favorite. Like, my favorite Power Ranger is Tommy, the Green Ranger. I mean, we've had this dispute with Joe till we are blue in the face. We will keep going neck and neck, you know, but it's just, he's just the one that I always thought, like, now, mind you, I liked Jason before Tommy came. I really did. He was my favorite. But then when Tommy came, then I went to Tommy. And I to this day, now it's Tommy and everything. And it's just, I don't know, I just like him a little bit more. But like those three guys, the original three, like I can kind of take bits and pieces of their personalities and stuff like that and insert it into myself. And that kind of makes me. So like, you know, I can't really say just one because there's not just one person that has the same qualities or somebody that I can really identify with that's really particularly the same with me. But I can take bits and pieces from several and put them together. So,
yeah. Well, for me, you know, I really like what y'all have said about Zach because Zach's a goofball. There's other characters because I'm a goofball. Anyone who knows me personally knows I'm a goofball. Like, I don't know if anybody gets that impression from me or not.
Really?
That impression about me or not. I'm very stoic, guys. I'm always very, very serious. But Zach being a goofball, I like what you guys said about that. And, you know, that is something I do identify with. Also, Joel from Lightspeed Rescue is like that. Joel, the cowboy. From
the
Green
flying
Ranger.
cowboy. No, Sky Cowboy? He's Sky Cowboy.
Sky Cowboy. That's it. Sky
That's
Cowboy.
right, Sky
That's
Cowboy.
it. So Joel is kind of like that from Lightspeed Rescue. But also, like, I sort of, in an odd way, I kind of identify with Leo from Lost Galaxy because Leo was was thrust into situations that he didn't necessarily want to be in. He had an overbearing parent who wanted him to choose one path, and he ended up choosing another.
Whoa. Are we talking about Leo? Leo's parents weren't in Lost Galaxy.
You're thinking of Wes.
You're thinking of Wes.
Wes. Sorry, Wes. I'm thinking of Wes.
Time Force.
Sorry.
Turn in your card.
I know. They all start running together, guys. Sorry.
Wow.
They all. Never mind. No, not. I'm gonna leave that joke in the archive. Not say it at all.
Wow.
But Wes from Time Force. Thank you, Nathan. I was getting the name wrong. Wes from Time Force.
This is why I'm your co-host.
This is. You're talking about Wes. Thank you, Alec. I appreciate that. But Wes from Time Force. I got because Wes and Leo kind of look similar, so I get them confused a little bit sometimes. But yeah, Wes from Time Force and Jason Font is just an awesome individual. I've really enjoyed talking to Jason Font, and of course Tommy. Sorry, Joe. I feel like I'm a sensitive soul, and Tommy was always a sensitive soul. So
yeah, he was.
Don't
Stop it,
I
Joe.
will not tolerate any Tommy hate in this stream.
stop it.
If you keep needling me, I'm gonna say something.
It's not his fault. He's
But-
so awesome.
It's true. It's not. But this franchise has went on for a very, very, very long time. Like it's been we're celebrating 30 years of this franchise, and we've seen a lot of stuff. We've seen a lot of like different
We've
seasons.
seen things, man.
We've seen so much in this franchise, stuff that like we can't unsee in this franchise, like Megaforce, but or Samurai. But with every long running franchise, there are ebbs. There are peaks and valleys. So it is fair to ask the question, like, is it time for the franchise to go on a little bit of a hiatus after 30 years? Is it time? So I want to start with Nathan this time.
I think it does. And I also think Super Sentai should go on a hiatus as well. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure that Sentai would even still be around if not for Power Rangers. I think a large part of why Sentai has been kept around, probably at least 20 years, I would say, well, maybe 15, is because Toei expects them to just make it into Power Rangers and make more money. Because I really do think their top priority in terms of their tokusatsu is Kamen Rider. Kamen Rider's their favorite son.
It feels like that. It really,
Yeah.
unfortunately, does feel like that. Even though
Yeah,
I don't
and
personally.
I just think in order for the franchise to refresh itself, it needs to take a little bit of a break. If you look at every major franchise, even out in tokusatsu and outside of it, they all take at least a bit of a break here and there because they need to. You don't want to oversaturate the market. Although the funny thing is, most people don't realize that there's been a Power Ranger show on TV for 30 years because it's not what it used to be back in the 90s when it was a phenomenon.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Adrian, what do you think?
Yeah, Nathan brings up a good point because 30 years is a long time for a type of show to continue to run on over and over and over. I mean, yeah, we've gotten like new Godzilla movies for 60 years, over almost 70 years, but even then, guys, even with the Godzilla franchise, that takes like 10 years hiatuses too. Power Rangers and Super Sentai in general have just been trucking along for the last 30 years, at least in America.
Sentai's
Not to mention
never
what happened-
taken a break.
yeah.
Never.
So, especially here in the States, just so we can get some new, fresh ideas, they probably should go on a bit of a hiatus just to keep it fresh, to bring something new. They think about new ideas, maybe even make it their own someday. So, I think they should take a hiatus.
Aaron, what do you think?
Well, honestly, even though I haven't seen what's going on with Power Rangers or Super Sentai recently, from the sound of it, it looks like everyone's basically agreeing it should go on a hiatus. So to that, I just want to say I feel like the Godzilla, just to make a comparison, I feel like the Godzilla franchise doesn't get enough credit for having the restraint to have its hiatuses. You know what I mean? Like first after the Showa era, Toho recognized, hey, we're kind of we're kind of creatively bankrupt here. We're just doing the same thing over and over again. So they stopped for a good while before they started up with 84. And then even after the Heisei era, after even less films in the Showa era, they were thinking to themselves, hey, we kind of got ourselves in a rut again. Maybe we should stop for a while. And then after the Millennium era, again, another decade passed by before another Godzilla movie came out. So I think it's a good thing for long-running franchises to take a break, just because when they eventually do come out of those breaks, they come out with some of their best stuff ever. Like let's see, after the Showa era, 1984 came out, which is well, at least from what I've seen, it's been praised as one of the best Godzilla movies ever. Um, with the Millennium era, I wouldn't say um Godzilla 2000 is considered one of the most critically acclaimed ones, but it did come out in response to the 1998 film, and a lot of praise 2000 for at least being true to what Godzilla actually is. And then with Godzilla 2014, that one's even more divisive, I think. But those who love the movie really at least appreciate just how much it tries to respect Godzilla as he used to be, as when he was when he was taken seriously as a actual cinematic, um what am I trying to say, like a work of art, or like something that has some actual depth or meaning to it.
Yeah.
So if Power Rangers and Super Sentai needs to have that kind of break, I think it should, just because when it does come out of it eventually, and it probably will, if it does go on a break, who knows, then it'll be all the better for it.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, I haven't watched it from beginning to end, but what I have seen, it's just the same thing recycled, and I think they just need a fresh start. They need a reboot. They need to bring out something that's going to get the attention of kids nowadays, because there's so much that they have to compete against nowadays, and then let alone like when we watch this stuff, like our entertainment was Saturday morning cartoons or shows like this. Like that's what we were focused to, what drew us to it and everything like that. But they don't have that nowadays. Like they have other ways of seeing things, and it's just like it's not all funneled into one. There's so many things going on. There's so many different ways to see things that it's just like they need something that's going to bring either the older fans back to it, or something that'll bring the newer generation to it more, because it's stalling out. It's becoming stale. It's just doing the same thing. It's a bad guy, a monster. They beat him, repeat. And they need to start doing something different. Otherwise, yeah, it's just going to fade away into nothing. And yeah, like they said, the Godzilla franchise is a good example actually of taking hiatus. Like, yeah, we don't like it. We absolutely hate it because we don't want years without it. But like, you can see that, when they come out with a movie year after year, it just kind of, it's not the same as when you see a new one after a long period. Like you appreciate it more, it draws in new people and everything, new fans. And it's just completely just revamped and given new life into it. And they definitely have to do that. Just what I've seen and heard, as I read news and stuff like that, and it's all just kind of the same. So even though I haven't watched it from beginning to end, I've watched my fair share, and it's basically all the same. And it's about time that they just kind of, all right, let's just cut it off for a few years, not even just 1 year. Let's do a few years. Let's make the people really want it, really want to see it again. And then they completely do an idea that's completely different than what they've been doing. Maybe do it more mature. Maybe do it for older fans instead of the kids, But like, I understand that they're going to go for sales, because that's where they're going to make their money, is that if they can draw in the kids, for the kids to ask their parents to buy things, like that's their cash crop. Like that's how they're going to make all this money and keep doing the same thing and stuff. But like, maybe do something for the older fans and stuff like that really can drop a buttload of money whenever they want, on their stuff, and make some more money, but also interest the older fans that have been with the series from maybe the start and everything like that, and just give it just something different, man. It's getting so old.
Jojo?
Well, I think I'm in agreement with everybody else. Yeah, I think it should go on a hiatus. I agree with what everybody said. I don't remember exactly what everyone's points were, but just to piggyback off what Eric said, don't go on a 1 year hiatus. Maybe go on 5 years. Come back for the 35th anniversary. Take time to, live in the nostalgia. Maybe put out a few things like, highlight reels or something. Keep it kind of in the zeitgeist of pop culture or whatever, but bring it back in a few years with a big relaunch. And I just think that Power Rangers has become so formulaic and it's so oversaturated. And we've had a season every year for 30 years. We've had and it's the exact same thing. Quite frankly, if you've seen one season, you have literally seen them all. It's just a different batch of who the Rangers are and who the villains are. It's monster of the week, save the environment, bullying is bad, be a good person, blah 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 blah, and that's all fine and good. But you have kid shows that are way more adult, that are not like so cheesy and PG or whatever. And I think that's fine to an extent. It's actually one of the things that I actually like about Power Rangers is the fact that I would be able to show it to my kids one day and not have to worry about the wrong message, or if they're going to see something inappropriate or hear something inappropriate. But there's a lot of us that have grown up with this franchise that are hungering for something different. I think the 2017 movie was like, I really liked it. And maybe it was just too early, but or maybe they just took the wrong approach with some of the characters, that it didn't hit well with everybody. But making something a little bit more adult, that I mean, look what they did with Cobra Kai. Look what they did with the Green Arrow on the CW and stuff. They took some of these obscure characters and made them darker and more adult, more later teen friendly, and they were very big shows, very popular shows. And I just think the oversaturation of the market, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And how can you really want something if you have it all the time? I love steak, but if I ate steak every single day, I'd get tired of it. And unfortunately, a lot of the seasons aren't steak. They're ground chuck at best. And I think they should take a big step back, reevaluate, and but also, take time. Don't just check the boxes of, oh, we need to have this in the show, we need to do this, we need to do that. Like, no. Take time, make a good story, good characters, and the rest will fall into place. People will fall in love with whatever characters that resonates with them. And quick shout out to Frankie Prattle. Frankie brought up a good point a little bit up, talking about Super Sentai and Rangers. When the merchandise sales start to dip, that's when we're going to see the hiatus. And I think that's honestly why you're starting to see the hiatus of Power Rangers, because I think like Lightning Collection, the sales have started to dip and things like
for
that.
a number of issues, or for a number of reasons. Quality control. Joe, because you and I both collect Lightning Collection. We collect the Lightning Collection, and there have been several like QC issues with the Lightning Collection that we don't have time to go into.
Which is so weird, because you would think Hasbro would be beyond that. I mean, their whole shtick is they're a toy company.
Yeah, but if you look at it in terms of overall sales, Power Rangers is really not that high on their list. It's like G.I. Joe, Transformers, Marvel Legends, like that kind of stuff is super high on their list. Power Rangers is like third or fourth on the list of things that they're selling that are popular. I personally don't think the IP of Power Rangers will ever go away. But the longer it has gone on, and the more I see it become more and more saturated now within pop culture, I think it is time for a refresh. I wanted to bring up a quick, because this will lead into my next question.
I just had one more point I was going to make.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Joe. Yeah, sure.
When they do bring it back, I think it would be better if they also condensed the season. Obviously make it more mature, make it a little bit more dark and gritty, whatever. But we don't need, 60 episodes. We don't need 30 episodes or whatever. Have, 10 to 12,
like a mini series,
45-minute episodes, like to where that's one of the things I love. Like the Boom Studios comics brought me back into Power Rangers before Cosmic or Dino Fury did. And it was nice. It was great to see the original casts with more, like, you got to see like their kind of like high school lives a little bit. And I don't want to see a whole like, teen romance or teen high school show, but I want to see the morphing and the action and the monsters and whatever. but you got to see where Kimberly's dating somebody, and it's not Tommy. His name's Matt, and he's actually friends with all 5 of the Rangers, and they keep dipping on him. He thinks they're blowing them off, but really they're going to save the world. And you see like the struggle, and like more of that, I think, would be, instead of it all just being hunky dory and we saved the day and everything's perfect within 22 minutes, you know.
I think but I honestly think though there is a difference between there is a line though. Like there is a line, especially with some of these more child friendly IPs. There is kind of a line you don't cross. And I think we've seen things in Ranger history that have kind of crossed the line a little bit, in my opinion, which kind of leads into our next question, which we've already been kind of talking about anyway. And that's, do we need a more, quote, mature take on Power Rangers? And the example I'm giving is Power Rangers Unauthorized, which for anyone who's not familiar with Power Rangers Unauthorized, it was a 2015 fan film. It was meant to be satire, but it was not taken as satire. Basically, it was a very nihilistic, cynical take on a kid's IP. You know, saying like, what if Power Rangers was full of really horrible people, basically.
Right. Yeah. The premise was it was a satire of the trend at the time, where somebody thought, well, let's get a kid's IP and we'll dirty it up like this and make it for grown-ups.
Yeah. I think there is a difference. There is a difference between making something adult and then making it more mature, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have something. Go ahead, Joe. I see the hand.
I want to. On the grid made a comment. He said, or they said, but if you only have 10 or 12 episodes, it doesn't give characters enough time to get fully fleshed out. I would make the argument that the characters aren't fleshed out after 60 episodes. So.
In a lot of cases, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, unless you were Tommy, I think Tommy got a lot of story time and whatever.
Zach did too.
I think Zach did too. I think, but I think that like if you're having, and keep in mind, if you're having like a 45-minute, hour long, you're having like almost 12 movies, right? Like, no commercials, whatever, it's on Netflix or, Peacock or whatever streaming service you want. You can have where everything doesn't have to be resolved. Even in the season, you can have storylines sprinkled in where it slowly progresses for, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons. And you could actually show the growth of these characters. I guess I'll say this now, like real quick. Like, I talked to you guys off stream about it. Like when Tommy became the White Ranger, like it would have been so much more interesting to me if Jason, Zach, and Trini, if there was a divide in the group where Jason was like, well, wait a minute, Zordon, you chose me to be the leader. I led this team into battle against Rita and her forces and went against Lokar. And, I trained this team. I led this team. And you're just replacing me because you found a more powerful suit. Like when Tommy was given a boost of power by Rita and the Sword of Darkness, I beat him. And you're having him replace me? Like everything I did wasn't good enough. And then it would have been interesting to see Zach and Trini have Jason's back with maybe Kimberly and Billy having Tommy's back. And where there's like kind of a divide in the group where maybe they don't become friends anymore. And there's this animosity that keeps building. And then maybe even before Tommy came in the picture, there was a little bit of maybe possible like, love story between Jason and Kimberly, maybe not like full on, maybe they don't actually get together or whatever, but like there's something there. But then Tommy comes and Tommy and Kimberly end up together. And so then there's even more animosity between Jason and Tommy that way. And, it just kind of have it fleshed out. And then, even though Jason, Zach, and Trini are upset, they're still going to come and help the team. They're still going to form the Megazord at the end of the day because they're like, you know what? I may be mad at you, but I'm not mad enough to let this city and this world burn. But like maybe they have to come back together to beat Lokar or Cyclopsis or something at the end. And Jason finally says, you know what? I love you guys, but I can't be here anymore. And then Zach and Trini are like, yeah, I love you guys, but we're out. And maybe they leave not on the best of terms, not on this like we're going to a peace conference, guys, and everything's going to be great. Maybe it's actually like it's not left on the best of terms.
Right. Nathan, I saw your hand just a second ago. You wanted
Yeah, to go off of what Joe was saying, what's interesting is what you're describing is what mine and Michael's friend Carl Dutton has been doing with Power Rangers the audio drama. What you described, lot of what you described happened in the audio drama.
Yep, I listened to it. I find it it's very good. I enjoy the hell out. I don't think I've seen the last or heard the last episode or two, but what he's done has been very very good. Yeah.
Right. And I honestly think that what Carl is doing with the audio drama, if you're gonna go the more grown-up route with Power Rangers, I think Carl gave Hasbro the blueprint for how to do it, where you don't go as extreme as Power Rangers unauthorized. Because I agree. I think that's too far. And like I said, and like we've been saying, the satire got lost on people. I don't want to go that route. But Carl aged it up, I think, in appropriate ways. And I'm also one of the defenders of the 2017 movie, but it does miss a few things here and there that I think keeps it from fully achieving what it set out to do. But I do think there's some things to be learned there, and I think Michael, you would agree with me on that.
Yeah, I would agree. Like there's a lot. I went into the 2017 movie, after not seeing it for several years and after just outright hating it, because it wasn't my Power Rangers. It wasn't. I didn't get what I wanted out of it. But what turned me around on the 2017 movie? Sorry, Jamie. Was the making of the film on if you buy the Blu-ray. For anyone who owns the Blu-ray and you've not watched the making of special that's on that Blu-ray,
which is longer than the movie.
Do it because it's wonderful. It's one of the most well-made behind-the-scenes documentaries I've ever seen on a Blu-ray disc. But that's a long tangent that I don't have time to go down. Eric, what do you think about this question?
Oh yeah,
I know you've been kind of touching on it, but
yeah, exactly. Like I agree. I agree with you guys. I agree with the chat. Like we want or we need a adult show, not a mature show. There is that fine line between the two. You can't go overboard when we're talking about making an adult show. You don't need to do sex scenes. You don't need to do all that graphics. You don't need that. You really don't.
Yes.
I thought Leslie made a good example of the Daredevil series from Netflix. Like if they made that a Power Ranger show, like that would be amazing because they made it gritty and dark looking and all this stuff, but like it didn't go over the edge, but it took it to the edge just enough, with the violence and stuff like that. But like people want to see that, like especially nowadays, they want to see that stuff and everything. Like they like to see that violence and everything like that, and they actually love that kind of stuff. So I'm all for the adult show, but not give it like an M rating kind of thing. They don't need to go that far.
I'm sorry.
We were laughing at Leslie.
Yeah, the comment. Well, I just want to point out, it's interesting we're talking about this, and I think we've got examples like the Boom Studios comics, or I would even say Once and Always was a good example of how to age up the franchise in appropriate ways. But you see, there's a lot of good examples we're seeing in the chat with fan productions, like Carl Dutton's audio drama, like someone brought up Power Rangers Unworthy, which I haven't seen yet, and I've been hearing so much hype about it. I think I may have to check it out. So again, the blueprints are out there. You just need to find the right one and then get the right people attached to it to make it happen.
I agree, Nathan. That's a good point.
Aaron,
And have long storylines like what Boom's doing. How Dark Spectre's been mentioned dozens and dozens and dozens of he's the main villain without a doubt. He is the big bad. He is the Thanos of the Boom Studios comics. You've seen him a little bit. You've seen like some shadows. You've seen some of the other major villains mention his name or whatever, but like he hasn't shown up. Like you can that's your thread of how you can replace these villains without it being like, oh, what, just another alien race invaded? Well, yeah, it's another army sent by Dark Spectre. It's not it's not hard to suspend the disbelief that there's this giant evil dark god and he has millions of slaves and armies and whatever. Like, yeah, he sent another one. You beat that one, he sent another one. Move on.
Maybe DC and Marvel have been doing stuff like that for decades in their comics.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my issue with that is I think that if you go, and I think we're all kind of in agreement here, and I'm just belaboring the point, I think, but like if you go so far with it, it loses the essence of what it's intended to be.
Right.
Like I think that Power Rangers, for example, Power Rangers Unauthorized, since it's like I'm looking at it here on the screen, loses the essence of what actually Power Rangers is. Right. It goes so dark and so far to the left of dark and gritty and edgelord that it loses something along the way of what the essence of Rangers is. So that's kind of my sense about it.
Yeah.
Adrian, you or Aaron have anything to throw in on this part of the discussion?
Well, kind of like I mentioned earlier about Once and Always. Once and Always was really a good attempt, a good example.
Once and Always
of being
is a
able
wonderful
to,
example.
I actually have
it is.
Right.
And like
Well,
every Power Ranger shows like that
hang on,
now,
Nathan.
I think us older fans would be able to appreciate it and be able to watch that regularly. And like you mentioned earlier, Joe, about like trimming it down to maybe like 12, 13 episodes. Like Leslie said, go to Netflix route, make it a 45, 50-minute show. And then you can do 12 or 13 episodes of a more adult Power Rangers. And I think that would work in that sense.
Aaron?
So I really want to add on to something that you and Eric brought up. So Eric, and then you were actually responding to what Leslie said about Daredevil, talking about how the reason that worked so well is because it didn't go past what was acceptable for its own limits, and I think that goes along with what Michael was saying about how it didn't lose the essence of what it was. So for Daredevil, the reason it worked so well with the ramped up violence, the making it more gritty, is because that's it. What they did with it was still true to the character. It didn't lose the essence of what Daredevil was. It was just a lot more true to the comics, while adding a lot more of what made it its own thing. Like you weren't wondering the whole time, why am I watching this when I could just read the comics? Like, or why do we have this instead of something that's more true to Daredevil just in general? And I think that's the really important thing that a lot of these newer adaptations miss when they adapt older IPs for newer audiences. It's really, I wouldn't mind seeing a more mature take on Power Rangers or whatever else, like something like TMNT or Transformers or all the stuff we used to love. It's just that a lot of the time when new directors or production companies do those things, they don't ask themselves what makes these things, or what gives them their own identities. And a lot of the time they go so far. I think that's, even though I like the movie, that's a lot of the criticisms that the Snyderverse films got, with Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman. Again, I like those movies, but I can understand the criticisms and I think they're fair. It's just, like, I don't necessarily think the show Power Rangers itself needs to be more mature. It just needs to be handled more maturely by the writers and the production company. And there's a huge difference between the two. I think it's like you were saying. It's, if you go so dark and edgelordy, it'll just be this, I don't know, this dark thing with blood and violence and drugs and or whatever else. It doesn't have to have those
Yeah.
things, but that's what a lot of people would eventually keep. It'll keep escalating to the point where if no one reins it back, it'll become
Mm-hmm.
it'll only be It'll only be Power Rangers in name, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Nathan, you
actually
had
wanted
to.
to.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh
Sorry.
no, sorry. Go ahead. No, you can go ahead.
No, you're fine. No, go ahead. No, go ahead. No, finish your thought, Aaron. Finish your
I
thought.
actually wanted to make a comparison to another huge '90s phenomenon that everybody seemed to love back in the day. At least it seemed like everybody did around me was a Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
You had this huge thing that everybody loved watching back in the day. It was at least for me and my crew back in the day, it was Dragon Ball, Power Rangers, things like Transformers, GI Joe,
Yep.
and I wanted to compare Power Rangers to Dragon Ball just because recently what they've been doing with that franchise has been amazing. Just because um, the newest movies they have, love them or hate them, I think what makes most people on the internet love them so much is because those movies don't forget who they are or where they came from. They don't add in new things just to make it dark or gritty or more mature. They they just emphasize the qualities that's already there and adds in new things to make that more exciting. Same thing with Daredevil. Um, Same thing with things like although this is more divisive, but in my opinion, things like Shin Godzilla or Godzilla King of the Monsters, 2019 King of the Monsters. It just takes what we already know and emphasizes every good quality we remember about them. And in that way, I think there's some of the. Um, that's why I think there's some of the most. That's why I mean, not everyone loves Shin Godzilla, but he's probably the most. He's still after almost 10 years now, one of the more uh, popular designs for Godzilla, and that has to say a lot. It's because for me, at least, it it doesn't try to add so much new that he's not Godzilla anymore. It's just that it takes what was there before in Shin's case, the 1954 film, and just emphasize every good quality of it to really bring it to adapt it for new audiences. And I think that's what a new Power Rangers adaptation really needs. Not necessarily to be more mature, just to be handled with more care, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan, you were going to jump in just a sec. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was actually Aaron, right? The
Yeah,
names are so
Yeah.
small now I can't read them. But you actually touched on my point a little bit there, and because I think it's a mistake to assume that if something is mature, it must have R-rated content in it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a mistake.
Yeah.
You can make something quote unquote mature or for grown-ups with how you tell the story. It doesn't necessarily
Absolutely.
require R-rated content. We don't need to see the Rangers decapitating monsters with blood flying all over the place. We don't need to see a sex scene between Tommy and Kim. We don't need any of that. We need mature storytelling. We need mature themes. That's why I bring up Once and Always as a good example. Michael, you and I spent like 3.5 hours talking about it and how it's something like that. And a big reason why we went on that long is because of how it tackles the concept of grief, which has never really been touched on in the franchise before. Because any other time they have somebody die, they end up reversing it. Well, guess what? Trini is now canonically dead in the show, in the TV continuity, and there's no way to get around that now.
Oh,
and it's gonna stick.
Yeah. I want to bring up just before we move on to the next topic. I wanted to highlight Leslie's comment again. It says, imagine a Power Ranger story that takes the Gamma 3 route where the Rangers / Zords accidentally kill someone's family while battling a monster. That could be interesting. So what I'm kind of picturing there when Leslie wrote that was, you open the film or you open the episode with a battle in Angel Grove and someone's family member dies either by I would say by accident, like a crossfire between the Rangers and the foot soldiers, or gets trampled on by the Megazord, something. and then that person becomes vengeful against the Power Rangers, and then that grows their hatred for them, and then there grows this societal resistance against the Power Rangers because they're just like, no, these are not people who are here to help us; they're just causing damage. So that could be an interesting route. I just wanted to highlight that because I
Right.
thought Leslie's comment was super
Right.
interesting there.
And, Michael, actually, you and I have talked about something like that. That was the Aftershock, the comic book
Yes.
sequel to the 2017 movie. That's
Yes.
basically the story of that.
Essentially, yeah.
Mhm.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically dealing with the fallout of these battles,
Mhm.
like actually
Right.
showing that, like, you know, maybe fighting the monster didn't happen in an abandoned rock quarry. It happened in someone's subdivision, and
Right.
you know, someone's houses are destroyed. I mean, and there's, you know, missing family and friends and children and whatever, and you know, they're upset because, you know, the Red Ranger didn't get there fast enough, and, you know, he let my girlfriend die, or he let my mom die, and, you know, whatever, you know. Yeah, I mean, showing the actual fallout of these things where you don't have
We've never really had to witness, not in any real significant way. We've never had to really witness like the consequences of these battles.
Yeah, like,
And
I just want so
No, go ahead.
that's the thing is that and that goes back with the storytelling. Like, it doesn't have to be, like Nathan said, like that R-rated stuff, but like, let's talk about, like, when the Power Rangers are fighting in this city 9 times out of 10 and they go through a building, what happens? You know, it's just an empty building. No, like, a good example of the vengeful, you know, person that, you know, maybe someone dies and stuff like that, is Batman versus Superman. When Batman, you know, the people that he knew died because of the battle with Superman and Zod and everything.
Zod,
like, that's
Mhm.
like that's good storytelling. Like, when we say mature, we want like good storytelling to really be amped up, because we want to see more than just the typical fight a monster, they kill it, and then repeat. Like, we don't want that. We want more. We want it to be immersed. We want different stories and different takes and everything that are how people feel about the Power Rangers, you know, if they're doing the right thing, if they're not, or whatever, or maybe the media coverage turning on them, like they do with like Spider-Man all the time, where they always try to, especially J. Jonah Jameson tries to make Spider-Man this bad guy, this villain. Like, you know that everybody doesn't like the Power Rangers and what they're doing or how they handle things, you know, like, put a different spin on things instead of the same stuff we see all the time.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, oh, why did the Power Rangers fight the monster here, but they didn't, you know, the putties were also attacking somewhere else, and they left our subdivision or our home abandoned. And yeah, I'm totally in agreement with all of you guys. I think you guys all bring up really good points.
Again, listen to Carl Dutton's audio drama.
Yes, for sure. So we've touched a little bit on maturity and things like that. I do want to kind of highlight a few comments I've been seeing a few comments in the thread talking about crossovers. So, you know, we've seen Power Rangers crossover recently with Godzilla. We've seen them crossover with TMNT, the Justice League. Are there any other crossovers that would make for really good content, either in television, movie form, or comic book form? Likely comic book form, I would say, would be the most likely thing that would happen, because it would be the easiest. Are there any crossovers? And I want to start with JoJo.
Oh, you would start with me on this one.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh man.
You know, I honestly, I racked my brain on this. And if you're talking like a comic crossover, you know, something fun that's going to be wrapped up in, like, you know, 5 to 10 issues or something. I'd love to see it, like, you know, a Beetleborg, Common Rider, something like that crossover again.
Well, oh, okay, again. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. You know, or like a, you know, Power Rangers Godzilla Part 2, something like that. But as far as like something like new, man, that's really tough. Like zombies come to mind because you kind of have like fodder, you know, cannon fodder for them just to kind of cut down type of thing. But I can't think off the top of my head, and I honestly have racked my brain on this. I can't think of something that I was like, oh man, like that'd be really cool to see a crossover, or man, Power Rangers would fit really well with that. The only one that came, you son of a bitch, Leslie.
I know he stole my answer.
Pacific Rim was literally the only one that came to mind. Thank you for stealing my thunder, you bastard.
There's a lot of rage in this call now.
Joe has a lot of rage.
I idle at 75. It doesn't take
He
me.
idles at like 80% all the
Yeah,
time.
it doesn't take me long to get to 100. Like I'm there, you know. But no, I was gonna say Pacific Rim because of the Jaegers and the giant kaiju. That was the closest thing I thought of that I was like, okay, that universe kind of fits. And I'm just gonna keep talking to prolong Eric.
No, come on!
Eric, no, it's fine. Eric, you have something
No,
to say.
I wanted to say it because Gamera just said it, but I was going to say Ultraman.
Ultraman, yeah.
Let the Power Rangers team up with the Science Patrol, and then if the monsters come, then the Megazord can come out with Ultraman. Like that would be super cool.
I will admit, it's seeing the looks on their face, and we're like, wait, did that guy just get huge?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that would
wait,
be
he
great.
can make himself grow.
Yeah.
But then
Exactly,
when he dissipates after 3 minutes, they're like, "The heck is?"
They're like, "Hey, where'd you go?
Where'd you go? We just got started."
Or what about Power Rangers and Transformers? And they're like, holy shit, their Zords can talk. You know?
That was
You
another
know?
one I thought of too.
Tommy looks back
Megazord
at
versus
Dragon Zord and is
Devastator.
like, can you speak? Like, you know?
I mean, the
Leslie, we
Megazord
do
looks
not
a
want
bit
that.
like Optimus Prime already.
Oh,
For God's sakes, Leslie.
for God's sakes, Leslie.
Dumpster fire for sure.
Adrian, inject some sanity into this. What is your answer?
It's all good, Leslie. I was just kidding, buddy.
So something else that's kind of weird and zany too that might make it work depending how they did it. What the Power Rangers in there with Gamera? Gamera fights a lot of interesting alien villains and things like that. So I mean, that'll be
Adrian,
Gamera.
you know, if the Power Rangers met Gamera, they just think he's shell shocked without the traffic lights.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Right, but
We fought this monster before.
Oh gosh.
He trained.
he hits harder.
That would be fun, though. I think
But
them
Tusk.
teaming up with Gamera. I think that'd be fun.
Right.
Yeah.
And finding all the weird aliens that they have, especially in the show era. Lord have mercy.
Aaron, are you? I think you might have said one earlier, but like
No, well, so I was gonna say Pacific Rim, but I guess everyone else was gonna say that too. So let's see. Well, actually, no, I got two that I'd really like to see. First one is Gundam, just because their whole thing is piloted mechs too.
Yeah,
heck yeah, that's a good one.
In a war setting. So it'd be really interesting to see Gundams fight non-mecha, like all the monster and kaiju and everything. And then my second one is just because I saw a really stupid edit of it. I don't know if anyone else saw it. It's where someone took, I don't know which Power Rangers season it was, where they their Zords are basically just vehicles or cars or something. Someone edited. Yeah, I have no
RPM.
idea. But someone made a really clean edit of the Fast and Furious.
That was Turbo. It was Turbo.
And honestly, it was so clean. I was like, well, damn, what if this happens? You know it would happen eventually because they've already been to space, so why not? You know? They've been to space in a rocket ship. They've The Rock has taken down a helicopter with a holding a turret that he ripped out of like another car or something. I don't know. It's just, I think it's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan?
Okay, I can't. Someone in the chat already did mention this, but hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Zhu Ranger. If for no other reason than for the comedy of them noticing how different they both are.
Yeah.
The Zhu Rangers are like, who hired a bunch of kids? or are like, how do you know how to do any of this stuff? We trained for years. You just magically know this? And then they're like, you take orders from an old wizard. You take orders from a guy in a tube.
The morphing grid is strong, but not as strong as family.
Oh shit. Oh. So you got Power Rangers and Harry Potter. You've got
That's called Mystic Force.
that is true. I
Oh,
forgot
was it for real? Maybe I should watch
Power Rangers and Star Trek. There's 2 seasons like that already.
In Space and Lost Galaxy.
Lost
Power Rangers
Galaxy.
and Star Trek. Yeah. No, Aaron, Mystic Force is literally Power Rangers and Harry Potter.
Oh my
It may as
god!
well
Yeah,
be called
I gotta
Power
check that
Rangers
out.
Hogwarts at this point.
It's Power Rangers Hogwarts is exactly what it is.
That's incredible. All right.
I mean, you guys have given like I'm with Leslie and Joe and everyone else. who said it.
Leslie,
Pacific Rim.
I like that Turbo and Car Ranger. Oh my
Ooh.
god.
Oh boy.
Oh man, I don't think the world is ready for Zanette and Divatux to meet.
Oh no, they are not. The world would implode
because Zanette would win.
What's up, John?
I don't know about that. Anyway, so anyway, so that was a little fun question. I didn't know how deep we would go there, but I do have an interesting question coming up. I know it's kind of typical to ask, oh, who's the most overrated character? I'm not going to ask that because
Lord.
I don't want to hear
Must
I don't
we?
want to hear Joe bitch about Tommy for the next 45 minutes.
Tommy Oliver.
Should
And
I?
let
Do
me
I need
tell
to hit
you
the
why.
rank master button for
Oh, I
someone
brought
here?
my
Because
notebook.
I've got it at the ready.
I brought my notebook. I have 14 pages of why Tommy is overrated. Sit down, get comfortable, grab some drinks.
Oh my god.
So, reason number one.
Get out of here.
Reason number one.
Oh god.
Oh god.
Oh, but I am gonna ask, in your opinion, what is the most underrated character of the franchise? And I'm gonna start with Eric, because I don't think I've started with Eric in a while.
It's been a minute. So we were actually talking about this one earlier, actually, on a call.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stick with what I kind of thought with, but I'm going to do Zach, just because I thought he had a lot of potential, and they just never like explored it and stuff like that. And him knowing martial arts and stuff like that, like I just thought like his fight scenes could have been done a lot better, you know, maybe with the choreography and stuff like that, and just let him do him, you know, kind of thing. And he had an interesting character and stuff, and you know, and sometimes he was really badass, he really was, but I just didn't think they let him blossom, you know, like they could have. I mean, obviously, you know, he left very early and stuff like that, so that kind of, you know, held him back a little bit. But you know, just what could have been, you know, is very interesting to think of. So
Yeah, and he had his own. He invented his own fighting style, hip hop keto.
yeah. Yeah.
Well,
That's one of my favorite things that come out of Power Rangers. Hip hop keto. It's amazing.
and they make fun of. I think they mention that. I'm pretty sure they allude to that in Once and Always in a weird
Mhm.
way.
It's name dropped once.
It's name drop. It's a throwaway line. Yeah. So Aaron, what do you think? Who is your underrated for the franchise?
Well, shoot. Well, I don't know. I guess I gotta agree with Zach because I wasn't even thinking of him. So that's just how underrated he is probably. Yeah. Now that I think about it, he had a lot of potential and I guess he was just overshadowed. I mean, he was kind of the clown of the group. So
Yeah.
I don't know how serious they wanted to go with him. He just, I guess, from what I remember, I haven't rewatched the entire thing in depth, but I don't remember a lot of storylines with him or a lot of focus on him, or like at least the same way they did with like Jason and Tommy and
Yeah.
maybe even like Kimberly too. So it's just like, yeah, I guess well, him and Billy too. I wish we would have saw more of them getting into more of their own storylines rather than just being support characters.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, they kind of made Zach just kind of be like the one that was always chasing the ladies, you know. And
Yeah,
that
it's
was
a funny
it. Like that,
gag, but
yeah, like but that's like okay, that's not what he always does though. There's
Yeah.
more.
That's
to
not
this
what he's
guy.
about all the time.
Yeah,
he
no,
can.
you know.
He's a tender lover and someone who can kick your ass at the same time.
Yeah.
In a really fun
Yeah.
and in a really fun and energetic
Yeah.
way,
yeah,
you're
he'll
gonna
make
enjoy
you.
What happens?
Yeah, he'll make you enjoy it too. Yeah.
right? Like he's suave with the ladies. I mean, him and Angela. I mean, it never
He
worked out.
tried.
he tried
He
really
tried.
hard.
He
Well,
tried.
Let's
he
be
got
honest.
an
She
E
was
for
she
effort.
was just stuck up. She was just
She
no.
was. No one.
He
No
was
one.
stuck
Needs,
good enough for Zach.
no one needs an Angela in their life. No one needs.
Let's be honest, we've
Jojo.
all had an Angela in our lives.
JoJo.
So I have two. As far as Rangers go, I'm gonna go with Trini. I think that
Okay.
she
Oh, I forgot
always
about
kind
her.
of gave some like wisdom to the Rangers and was always kind of like the calm, confident one as far as like a female. Jason was like that too, but he's I feel like more popular and whatnot. So, but I feel like as far as underrated, it would go with Trini. She was always there to support and boost the confidence of the team. When they were doubting themselves, she was always there, cheering them on, whether it was a bench press competition or a gymnastics thing or whatever, a martial arts tournament. She was always there to kind of give that boost. So I'm going to go with Trini. I don't think Trini gets enough
She was
love.
like the mom figure.
Yeah. For sure. And then as far as non-Ranger people, I'm going to go with Ernie. And I think for the same reason, kind of as Trini, like he was there, he was kind of their Zordon when they were a civilian, and he was always there. Juice Bar was always open for them to get their mind off things, to train, to just go out and have kid life, and if they needed to, belly up to the Juice Bar and talk about problems, I feel like he was there to handle that aspect of their lives.
Funny enough, Joe, at
I'm
one
aware.
point
I'm aware.
early on in the development of the show, Ernie was supposed to be Zordon in disguise.
Yeah, I heard that. It would have been cool. I actually think it would have fit very well. But yeah, so Trini and Ernie are mine.
Nathan, what's your who are you?
Am I allowed to say Rito?
Huh?
Am I allowed to say Rito?
No, you're not, and he's not allowed to come in the stream either.
Actually, I've got a couple of them. And neither one of them are Rangers, interestingly. I racked my brain for a few minutes, and I think I've landed on a couple. One, and it's also, I think, an actor who needs to get a bit more love and appreciation, because he is one of the highlights of the post-Saban era. Because you and I talked about this, Michael. The Disney era of Power Rangers has a lot of peaks and valleys, but even when the shows were awful, one of the highlights was Kelson Henderson. Kelson Henderson, the actor Kelson Henderson, he played a character in a lot of those seasons, and he was consistently good. At points, he actually surprised us with how he was able to a character that we would have expected to be really gimmicky or annoying or stupid. He manages to elevate. I mean,
he was
we take shots at Operation Overdrive all the time, but I gotta admit that Crazy Yeti is weirdly
he owned
endearing.
It. Like he owned the Norg character.
Yeah, he really did. But
I appreciated that.
But my favorite of his characters is Boom from SPD.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he was the kind of the low-ranking tech guy. He made all of their technology, but he always envied the Rangers because he wanted to be a Ranger. We get to see him as a Ranger in a fantasy sequence. He was orange, which is really amusing. And so he always wanted to be one of the heroes, and he did get to be one in one episode, but he learned that the place where he is most useful, where even though he doesn't feel like he's contributing anything, where he really does help is by making all of these crazy pieces of technology, this gear that they can use in order to go do their job. And I think that's something that most of us can identify with, even if we can't go be, in the spotlight, be the hero. We can be a very important support for the hero. And then I want to pick a villain here. It's an incredible character that I wish more people would talk about. Trakina from Lost Galaxy.
Makes sense.
Because what makes her interesting for me is she basically goes on not a hero's journey, she goes on a villain's journey, and she's kind of the mirror opposite of Astronema, who goes from evil to a redeemed heroine by the end, whereas Trakina starts off not as villainous as you would think, and then she slowly descends into darkness, and that to the point where by the time you get to those last few episodes, because good lord, the finale for Lost Galaxy is top tier stuff in the franchise, where she just goes completely mad to the point where she is literally strapping bombs to her own henchmen and just sending them in to blow things up. She has an army of suicide bombers. It's insane looking at that now. There is no way they would try something like that now. That was that was in 2000, I believe, when they were doing 2001.
This was it was pre 9/11. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was 99, 2000. There's no way they would have the guts to do something like that now. It was incredibly bold, and to see that descent into madness is just it's incredible, especially since there are points where you kind of root for her and you understand her. She gains a mentor who's actually a really good character, and you really like her, and eventually she turns on him because that's how far she has how far she's fallen at this point. She's such a great character, but not a lot of people talk about her.
Yeah. Adrian, what do you think?
Actually, I agree with Joe. I really think that Trini is really underrated. And the reason why I think that's because I guess going back and what we watch in Power Rangers now, I mean, of course, when we were all kids, we all had a crush on Kimberly. But Trini she had a beautiful soul. Like Joe says, he was always there to pick up everybody when they was down or if they needed that extra boost of encouragement. She was always there. To me, Kimberly was the pretty girl that everyone liked, but Trini was the wifey material, and she really was that mom of the group when they really needed her, for sure. I definitely got to go with Trini. And of course, rest in peace, Trini.
Absolutely. For me, there are also two. One of our listeners now currently actually named her. I know Kim. We all love Kim. We all love Amy Jo, but in terms of
including you.
Yes, including me. But in terms of top tier Pink Rangers, I'm gonna have to give one of my answers to Kendricks.
Yeah.
From Lost Galaxy, because Kendricks, that was she was the first one. She was the first Ranger to ever quote unquote die, effectively die. For personal reasons. For anyone that doesn't know the history of that episode, the actress ended up actually with breast cancer. I think it was breast cancer.
Leukemia.
That's what it was. She ended up with leukemia, and she had to leave the show for a little while, so they had to find a way to write her off. But prior to her being written off, she was one of the most endearing characters in the show, and she's one of the strongest Pink Rangers that we've seen in the franchise. Another Ranger that I think doesn't get enough love from the franchises itself is Casey, the Red Ranger from Jungle Fury. I think Jungle Fury Red doesn't get enough recognition, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of fans that love Jungle Fury, but Jungle Fury is a season that's wedged between a really good season and a really terrible season. If I'm remembering the order correctly. So it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But if you go back and watch Jungle Fury and watch it all the way through, you see that character progression for Casey. And then ultimately towards the end, he literally walks into the lion's den to face the enemy, and which is the reverse of what we've seen prior in prior seasons, where usually the bad guy will invade the command center or the base of operations. It's kind of a trope of the franchise. We hadn't seen really a ranger invade the compound of the main villain to vanquish the bad guy. Go ahead, Nathan.
Well, I was just about to say, it should also be noted, he doesn't go there to fight the bad guy. He goes there to save the bad guy.
True. Yes, because Jared,
Jared, yeah.
Yeah, Jared was his fellow pupil at the martial arts academy, and he went in to talk some sense into him, and that was that we talked. What was the theme for that season? Was it bravery or was it something else?
I don't remember offhand. Let me go look.
It's not important. It's really not important. I just couldn't remember it offhand. But basically, Casey was incredibly brave and incredibly bold. He had the balls to walk into the lion's den, literally, to face down Daishi. So if anyone's not watched Jungle Fury, it was one of our favorite seasons. It's still one of my favorite seasons. I totally recommend watching that one. But since we got to move on, so there's a lot of seasons to pick from, right? And there's a lot of entry points for this franchise that a lot of people can pick. So if you were approached by someone who's never watched Power Rangers, either they're a kid or they're just somebody who's never been interested in it at all, like where would you recommend they start? So I'm actually going to start with Aaron on this one.
Shoot, that is a good question. I don't know. My gut answer would be to just start from the beginning. But I know so many if we're going with a kid, if you're recommending something to a kid, I know so many kids these days just can't watch old stuff just because they don't like how dated it looks or how dated the rest of it is, because it really is, as much as we love it, the original Power Rangers seasons, first few seasons were really they're a product of their time, I think, which is why it's so great, but also to a kid it wouldn't be, maybe. I'm not sure. I guess it depends on the kid, but I have seen a few random clips from some of the newer seasons, and I was surprised by how much some of the action and set pieces had evolved later on. I mean, it's not like movie quality most of the time, but it's still pretty great. So if there's, I'd say maybe one that's probably the one that is the most self-contained, but is also, I mean, if you can still enjoy it on its own, but you wouldn't have to watch everything else to understand it, but at the same time it'd be great to go back to it once you do watch everything else, just so you can understand it that much more and get more out of it. I don't know if there's a season like that exists right now, but you guys probably know more than me, but that's really all I can say, just because I haven't seen so many of the newer stuff.
Nate, you and I have went through extensive amounts of Power Rangers last year.
You mean all of it?
All of it.
All of it.
Where would you tell someone to start?
That is a difficult question for me to answer, because I would have to ask a lot of follow-up questions. Because I would have to know more about what that individual person is looking for. It also would depend on if it's an adult or if it's a kid. There's a lot of things I would have to tailor it to. I don't know if there's necessarily a catch-all answer. The safe one to say is to just because that's usually how I operate, is just start at the beginning and keep going. So
Right.
start with MMPR because it establishes a lot of what you're going to end up seeing. The problem is that most of my favorite seasons either require previous viewing or they aren't necessarily the most typical. Like Gamera suggested RPM. I adore RPM a lot, but RPM is not typical Power Rangers. So if you start some with RPM and then you say, well, go watch Jungle Fury or Dino Charge or whatever, they're going to be like, this is completely different. I don't know what to do with it. So I feel like there needs to be some groundwork laid with what is quote unquote typical Power Rangers before you get to what I think is the high quality outliers in the franchise.
Yeah.
That's kind of a long-winded non-answer, I admit, but like I said, I need to know what that person is looking for
And that's
first
fair.
to really
So
recommend, because I mean, we talk about how Power Rangers has a formula. I'm going to tell you right now, all these Toku hero shows have their formulas, and they don't typically diverge from them. It's the details that make them interesting, the characters or the monster designs, or it's what's part of the package that makes it interesting, even though the package is going to have the same general shape. But I would have to know what they're looking for before I would do that. If they want something darker, I would say go with RPM, maybe even the 2017 movie. If you don't necessarily want to get into the really silly stuff, but again, those are not typical Power Rangers, so I don't know. So yeah.
So is there not like an individual season or even just an episode or story arc that would be good for someone to just jump into randomly later on? Would they really have to start at the beginning to get the most enjoyment out of it?
Not necessarily, I would say. Some of the newer stuff would probably be a little bit more accessible for people who are more used to how modern television works. So basically anything from when Hasbro took over. Beast Morphers I think is actually a pretty good show. Dino Fury, well, and here's the thing. Both Dino Fury and Beast Morphers are accessible for newcomers, but they also do throw in stuff that if you've seen past seasons, you'll be rewarded for knowing that. There are some appeals to nostalgia, but not so much so that you can't pick it up. For example, I think I saw very little of classic Doctor Who growing up, and then someone got me hooked on the new show. From episode 1 of the new show, they're doing callbacks to the original series, and I was still able to follow along and get into it, even though I'd never seen, at least I'd hardly seen, I should say, any of classic Who, and I still got into it, and it got me curious enough to go back and look into classic Doctor Who. Because you get to like episode 6 and they're bringing back really iconic villains and characters from that show, like the Daleks, and I'm like, they're treating the Daleks like these are really important. So maybe I should look into it. And then I found out there's this whole history to it that when I go back and actually watch classic Who, I get a greater appreciation. So, maybe Beast Morphers or Dino Fury might be a good place to go for, if you want something newer that will perhaps make them curious about what came before.
Okay.
Joe, you look like you were itching to talk.
I agree with all the lists of every season that Nathan just named. But I would also say like Time Force, it's kind of contained. It's not you don't have to know about the Zordon era or anything. Even Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed Rescue, they were saying the newer stuff, Dino Fury, Beast Morphers. I can't say I've seen a lot of stuff in between Time Force and Beast Morphers, so teach your own. But I think it is important, like that, if you are going to get into a franchise that's been around this long, that you should visit the first, just to kind of know what the roots are. Unfortunately, like if you I really want to say In Space, but I think it's important to watch at minimum the first season of MMPR and probably Zeo. Like Zeo's my favorite season, but Zeo is going to make way more sense if you've seen the other seasons. So
Mhm.
Yeah,
Just-
that's the thing about those first 6 is they flow together very nicely, and it's hard to just start someone in the middle of any of those.
I agree. That's why I would say like Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed, Time Force, Beast Morphers.
Yeah, Time Force would be a very nice self-contained one to give somebody. Yeah.
I mean, Time Force. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say maybe even Wild Force, just for the fact of Forever Red. You can kind of be like, oh, I really liked that Red Ranger. I want to see what season he was in.
Oh, is that the big crossover?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of them.
The greatest anniversary special.
I was going to say arguably the best anniversary special until Once and Always.
I think it's better than Once and Always.
I mean, I like Dimensions in Danger. It was okay.
Dimensions in Danger is retroactively elevated for tragic reasons.
No,
Is that
it's downgraded for those reasons.
wow, Joe? Moving on, Adrian.
Wow.
Oh my!
Dang it, Joe.
No.
Go
not
to
because
whatever
he's passed. I'm
version
saying
of hell
because
is in
he's it.
Power Rangers.
No,
'cause
I'm
there's
not saying
several.
because he's passed. I'm saying because he was in it. Like once again, Tommy was in it, as always.
Adrian, what would you show?
Anyways.
What would you show Jaden if Jaden came to you and said, "Dad, I want to watch Power Rangers"? What would you show him?
Actually, I can actually say for Jaden, Savina, my girlfriend's daughter, Raven, and even Serena, I actually started with MMPR. Started from episode 1 of my Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I honestly put it on just to like have Raven like just relax and watch something. But Serena really got into it too, so it was like,
Oh, that's
oh,
pleasantly
nice.
Okay. That is pleasantly surprising.
So and I guess for me it's just the nostalgic factor as well. I mean, because I know how I am when it comes to picking someone to watch a Godzilla movie, Batman, Superman. I'm very picky when it comes to that. But for me, I got us off in the beginning.
Eric?
I mean, same. I mean, I grew up with the originals. I have to do the originals. I mean, that's what got me into it. That's what I would think would get anybody else into it that I would introduce it to. But I agree with, I believe, Aaron's point is that it is dated for today's youth, I guess. And a lot of kids nowadays can't watch that older stuff. I don't know why. It's just not their thing.
Yeah, it's weird.
If it's the animation, if it's just the acting, whatever, they
Black
just
and white.
don't. they just don't gravitate towards it. So it's outdated for them. So for me personally, I would do the original, but like I would understand that, you know, if you know a good show that's more recent, that has the higher quality effects and you know, the newer suits and all that stuff, everything looks nice and crisp and clean and all that stuff, like show them that. But like, to me personally, I have to go with the original. That's where it all started, and that's where I would start. So
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that any of the TV shows are necessarily going to be viewed as "quote unquote" high quality, you know, compared to some of the other things you see on American television, because it comes from Japanese sources and they have very different aesthetics. They're different things are more acceptable over there, and Power Rangers just follow suit, and the fan base just learns to accept it.
I was just gonna say that I personally don't think if someone new came to me and they wanted to get into Power Rangers, I would tell them to start with something like a Beast Morphers or even Dino Fury or Cosmic Fury. I would tell them probably to work backwards and say, oh, since you're probably used to more modern sensibilities in terms of like filmmaking and things, I would say start with some of the more recent things. I really loved Beast Morphers. I thought Beast Morphers was a tremendous season. It was well written. It was well acted. The characters were incredibly likable. The Beast Bots are endearing and adorable. The Zords, although goofy, were actually really cool. I would say start with Beast Morphers, and because as much as I want to say, oh, start with MMPR, duh, there's just a lot of weirdness with MMPR that I just don't think a new fan would I think a new fan that is not used to like tokusatsu and how Japanese television works would have a little bit of a have trouble getting over. Like there's just some weirdness with those first couple of seasons that I just think fan or a new person would just have trouble with. So I would just tell them start with the new stuff and then work their way backwards. And then pick out some highlights, some more standalone seasons like Joe and everybody else has said. Time Force, Lightspeed Rescue, Lost Galaxy. Maybe even go back and watch In Space, because In Space kind of wraps a lot of stuff that has to do with the franchise up in a nice little bow while still being in its own right self-contained. So that's what I would personally tell somebody that was brand new. And if they haven't, and if they love what they're watching, go watch the original. It's the same principle. It's the same thing I tell people when they want to get into Godzilla. I tell them, go watch, like, what do you like? Let's say, oh, you like really flashy special effects and CGI. Okay, start with the MonsterVerse and work your way backwards. Oh, you don't mind a little bit of the silly stuff. Okay, start with like some of the Showa films, like Son of Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters. You know, I rarely tell people to start with Gojira unless they have this penchant for that very dark, gritty, more serious tone. I feel like it takes a certain kind of fan to start with Gojira and then fall in love, right? In my opinion. So,
or it could just be that they want to start at the beginning.
Maybe, yeah, maybe, but that could be the case too. But like if I'm trying to dial in on someone's taste and preference, that I'm like you, Nathan. I'm gonna ask some questions.
Yeah.
So, well, I have one more question for you guys, and to help wrap us up. And I'm not gonna tee up anything. I'm just gonna simply ask, what, in your opinion, has kept this franchise going for 30 years? And since I heard you say "shh," Eric, I'm gonna start with you.
I'm gonna say money. I'm gonna say money.
Money? Okay.
That's, I mean, like I said, I think I mentioned it before. Like it's a cash crop for them and everything. A lot of kids do get into it. Obviously, we've been following it for many years. You know, it's kind of like once you're hooked, you're kind of hooked. Same thing with Godzilla and stuff like that. But I do definitely feel like, you know, it is a big. Right?
I mean, they're not wrong.
Bandai mandates everything to everybody in Japan.
Literally.
They're not wrong.
Like, that is, yeah.
They're
that
not
is,
wrong.
they just know that like they can throw this crap at us and we're gonna buy it regardless, you know. And it's I just because like I've said before, like nothing's changed throughout this whole time. It's always the same thing with these seasons. So it obviously can't be that, because we always do the same thing except for different rangers and different villains. It's all the same. So it's like obviously they got to be making money with the toy sales. But I mean, it can be said about Ultraman. Like they're very big and like their series, like they can throw that kind of stuff out there with like, either new transformation morphers or whatever, you know, however the Ultraman transforms. Like you throw that out there on the market and people are just going to gobble it up because it's just something new that they want to use, you know, for the new Ultraman. It's just something that they know that they can make a lot of money with. And I mean, honestly, what they've been doing for 30 years, I mean, what else could it be, honestly?
Yeah. Adrian, what do you think? What has kept Power Rangers alive for 30 years?
So ironically, someone kind of brought it up earlier, and it's because they're able to make toys still. That's why they're able to make toys still. They're still
How
able to
many
make
handprints
toys
do we have in the chat?
Yeah. Thank you, Whitney. Yes, it's the merchandise that's keeping it going. The kids buying all the merchandise. The parents have to buy the merchandise. And if this is gonna keep making money, like Eric said, why stop?
Why stop? Exactly. Oh, Aaron, what do you think? What's kept this franchise alive for 30 years? Give me a different answer. Besides,
okay, so I do have a different answer, but I just think it's so funny that so we got these questions before, and then I have like, I'm not gonna say all of this what I've written down, but I wrote down like 3 paragraphs of what because trying to gather my thoughts, trying to have this whole heartfelt, in-depth answer, and then the first thing Eric says is money. Then like money. That's
I'm being honest. I'm
So
being honest. It's
cynical.
hard.
I
mean,
sorry,
no, I mean you're
that
not
is
wrong
so
though. It's
cynical.
You're not wrong, and it's just like I'm just laughing because that's probably more true than anything I've written down. So
Okay, wait till it's my turn. Wait till it's my turn.
okay, all right. So well, just to summarize my answer, okay. So I was gonna start off and saying like, well, I haven't seen any of the recent Power Rangers shows, but if it's still anything like it was before, it's because it probably, no matter how cheesy and corny it gets, it somehow just does so well at capturing childhood fantasies we've all had, like being cool superheroes that save the world, having a close group of friends you can just kick it with and share all your deepest, I don't know, like they can only really share their experiences with each other, and that really brings them closer as a result. And I don't know, as corny as it all is, it still does a great job of translating all the Super Sentai stuff to the growing pains of adolescence and childhood and your teen years. And but really none of that matters because it's all about money, so we can move on.
JoJo.
Don't be like that, Aaron. Don't be like that, Aaron.
I'm gonna need some
JoJo.
Prozac after
no,
this
it's all good.
stream.
I still believe in my answer, but it's just I think Eric's is
I
hilarious.
believe in your answer too. I don't believe these cynical a-holes over here. I believe in your answer, Aaron. JoJo, what do you think? What's kept this franchise alive for 30 years? And you're muted.
You're muted, JoJo.
You're muted, buddy.
You're muted,
There you
Papa.
go.
There we
Unmute
go.
yourself, Boomer.
There you go, Papa.
Sorry about that. I gotta agree. I mean, obviously, like money and all that other shit, I agree totally 100%. But I also think, I think like the nostalgia of it. I think there's a lot of people like all of us that grew up with it and are hoping that one of the newer seasons will, make us touch us in the feels like it did, in the first season or whatever, bring us back to a simpler time when we weren't adults and having to live through all the stuff we've lived through. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just like an escape, the nostalgia of just being a kid and not having to worry about bills and mortgages and world events and pandemics and all this shit, just being carefree. That's one of the biggest reasons why I love Godzilla is being able just to enjoy it without social commentary or worrying about what's on the news or whatever,
Yeah, for sure. All right, Nathan, go ahead and
Okay. I get it. The merchandise is a big factor. It's a big, I should say it's a big motivator for the bean counters. But you can say that about basically any franchise, the merchandising. Oh, it's Spaceballs. The merchandising. I get it. But that's really, but again, like I said, that's the bean counters. But let's be honest. If the merchandise is based on something that people either don't care about anymore or didn't have merits unto itself, it's not going to sell. Look at, to go back to Star Wars, look what's been happening the last few years with a lot of Star Wars merchandise. The sales have been dropping because people have been unhappy with the source material that the products are based on. Because if the buyers are not invested in the characters, or if they're they're role play items like lightsabers or morphers or something like that, they're not invested in those in what the merchandise represents, they're not going to buy it. And we've also had examples. You go back to the 80s where you might have something, a piece of media that spawns a lot of merchandise, but it's a flash in the pan and then nobody cares anymore. So I will always say if things like Transformers, GI Joe, Power Rangers, all of these things that we all grew up with, if it can't just be nostalgia, it can't just be the merchandise itself, there has to be something deeper than that, which is the whole reason that Michael and I started the Power Trip, because we were going to take this seriously and not just assume it's a glorified toy commercial. There has to be something more there. Of course you would go there, JB.
I personally think that there was a nerve struck in 1993 that has resonated for 30 years. What that nerve is, I don't know. Personally, I think a lot of it has to do with nostalgia. A lot of it has to do with us as children wanting to see ourselves in the role of a superhero fighting the bad guy. And then a lot of us, I think, from what I've talked to other Ranger fans, the reason why they love the franchise so much is it's about friendship, the power of friendship. We covered that.
Power
on
of
the podcast.
friendship.
But it's about that, right? It's about camaraderie. It's about being there for your team. It's about being there for your friends and doing some cool shit along the way. Like that's what Power Rangers has been about for 30 years. I mean, yes, the toys and yes, the merchandise, that's part of it because that's what feeds the machine. But at its core, Power Rangers is a team of teenagers with attitude, and they're also a team of friends fighting for one singular cause. And I feel like that's all something that we can just kind of identify with. So in my personal perspective, I think that's what's kept the franchise alive for so long, is because it seems to know how to strike that nerve on a very fundamental level without getting fancy with it. Like that's why we see it being rehashed over and over and over and over. These storylines and these story arcs and these concepts and these tropes is because they work, because they continue to resonate with us on a heart level, not necessarily on just a nostalgic level. That's just my 2 cents.
May I just say one last thing?
Sure.
You hate Tommy, we know.
I hate Tommy. Leslie, when you're ready to sell your gigantic Megazord, hit me up.
The hell he will. The fuck he will. No. I've already laid claim to it if he ever does.
I've got deeper pockets.
You may have deeper pockets, but he promised.
Promises are made to be broken.
Someone didn't watch enough Power Rangers growing up.
Anyway, so that's all the questions I had, guys. I mean, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing this and celebrating, 30 years of a franchise that really should not have survived this long.
No, like I said before, like I'm rewatching, Mighty Morphin and stuff like that, and just a lot of this stuff is like, God, it's like I like this. I liked this back in the day. It's like it's crazy. It's just
It's bad now.
yeah. It wasn't then. Like I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it, obviously, and stuff like that. But like it's different when you grow up and then you look back at a lot of the older things, like, oh man, like I can't believe I liked that, or oh man, that was really weird, kind of thing. But it is interesting going back through it, especially like such a big gap for me. Like I said, it's been like 20-something years, going back and actually watching it, and it's actually interesting to see, and rewatch it and be like, oh, okay, I liked that before, but I don't like that now, and oh, I don't like that before, but now I like it. So it is kind of fun though to go back and actually see it though.
It is. Does anyone have any final thoughts before we wrap up? Adrian, Aaron, JoJo, Nathan.
Even though I know Joe hates Tommy, it was, at least for me, when we lost JDF, it affected a lot of us Power Ranger fans who grew up with him. So of course,
Yeah, for
rest
sure.
in peace, Jason David Frank, and also to Trini as well.
Yeah, rest in peace.
As much
absolutely.
as I despise Tommy as a character, I was not a fan of what I saw of JDF in interviews and stuff. However, it was still sad. He was a he was a human being, man. He had a lot of fans, and that's I'm not happy in any way that he's gone. That's not, it's sad. It's a blow, not just to a make believe TV show, and obviously, Austin and JDF had their issues, but I think Austin said it the best. At the end of the day, that was a husband, that was a father, that was a brother, that was a son, and that's what matters. Not a make believe TV show, not a not the greatest ranger, none of that shit mattered. What mattered is that somebody lost a father and somebody lost a husband, and it's sad.
Actually, I'm glad we're on the subject of JDF. To kind of backtrack to Michael's final question, I know I got a little incensed about other things, but I do think a big part of why Power Rangers is still around. You're gonna hate me for saying the show, but it is.
Cut his mic. Cut it. Cut the mic. Cut the
mic. It is because of JDF, because he was such a great ambassador for the franchise. He was very good with the fans. Into the void. But
I had to stop him before he exploded.
Yeah, I know. But he was so incredibly good with the fans, and because of that, I think even when he wasn't in Power Rangers, I think it endeared people to the franchise to continue watching, to introduce it to their kids and things like that, because of how good he was with people. And I'm very glad I was able to meet him last year, just a few short months before he passed.
Tommy helped make the franchise last long. God, that was the hardest freaking thing I've ever had to do. You know what? He was a phenomenal ambassador, for the brand. Very well known. When he passed away, I mean, it wasn't just like it wasn't just a blip on the radar. Like, it actually went through pop culture. Like, you had wrestlers and actors and actresses and singers actually commenting on it, and the New Day, coming out to the ring, as the green and white Rangers.
Yep.
Hey man, I get it. Like, Tommy was not for me, and in fact, Tommy was the reason why I turned off a lot of the time. But I get he has his fans, and more power to you guys and your wrong opinions. But
wow,
Hey,
wow, Joe! I've already got two gatekeepers in my life. I don't.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, even when their opinions are wrong.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you know what? One opinion I have is this stream has been really fun. So before we get out of here, there's a couple little housekeeping items that I do want to take care of before we all give our shameless self promotions and do the thing. One thing is our friend Rob Buck is going to be hosting a charity stream on Monday starting at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Correct? Is that correct, Nathan?
Yeah, 1:30, and it's Ranger Day proper. That August
Ranger
28th.
Day proper, right? So, and what he's going to be doing is he's going to be attempting to raise money for a charity. Oh, he's going to be trying to raise money for to write love on her arm. So that's the same charity we raised money for JDF stream, which is a charity organization that takes that helps resources people. Suicide prevention. It's a place that resources people with suicide prevention. So he's going to be trying to raise $300. $300 should be easy to raise. So if you guys are around around 1:30 p.m., he's going to be streaming for about 6 hours, like playing games, doing some different activities. Nate and I will try to pop in as if we can to be on the stream as well with him. And just kind of shoot the shit and talk about Power Rangers and talk about all the cool stuff that's happened in the franchise for the last 30 years. So we'll be posting some stuff about that in the next couple of days to let people know where they could hang out with us. Also, Nate and I will be hosting a Power Rangers Day stream on Monday evening. Monday night, and you guys are invited. If anyone wants to show up, that's fine. We're going to be talking about Godzilla versus the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. We're going to have some
the comic book
guests.
series. Yeah,
we're just going to
want to max out StreamYard.
We're going to try to max out StreamYard, and if we can't fit everybody in StreamYard, we'll just rotate people in and out. It's fine. So we're going to be doing that for Ranger Day. Outside of that, kaijuramamedia.com for all things kaiju ramen and tokusatsu. I'm done talking. So, Nathan, shameless self-promotion within 30 seconds, please.
Well, I know that this is also a kaiju-centric show, so be sure to... You mentioned Kaijurama Media, and we should also put out the Kaiju Weekly. I would also tell you to check out my other podcast, the Monster Island Film Vault. Michael has been on the show frequently. It's 3 parts film analysis and appreciation, 1 part audio drama. Trust me, it makes sense if you listen. I would also check out Henshin Men, which is about tokusatsu superheroes. It's been mostly Kamen Rider focused of late. And also check out, I mentioned Carl Dutton's Power Rangers, the audio drama. He also does X-Men, the audio drama. I'm a cast member on both shows. I brought up Rito because I play Rito on that show there. The shtick has been satisfied. And check out my author website, nathanjsmarchand.com.
Also, the comment "block this man" is directed towards Jake Hambrick, where he said Clifford is a kaiju. We don't talk about that. And like Nathan said, we're involved in a lot of stuff. Of course, the Power Trip. We just recorded a really good episode with Kim, Kaiju Kim, that'll be out soon.
Mega Ranger,
and then
we need Car Ranger first.
And then we're going to be recording on Cosmic Fury as soon as that's out, and then. That'll kind of wrap up the show from there. But Eric, shameless self-promotion.
Okay. You can check out my YouTube channel, Bearded Kaijus Unboxing Reviews. I actually just dropped a video today reviewing the FSL X Plus Ultraman 1966. So go check that out, please. Other than that, you can obviously find us on here, Monsters with Attitude, YouTube. We do a show once a month about different topics, this and that. And we also just made a Facebook group, Monsters with Attitude Collectors Group. So go check us out there. Become a member. We're very young. I think we're only a couple weeks old, but we're almost to 250 members. So thank you all for joining that. It's going to be a great community. That's what we're building for. And we stream exclusively on the Facebook group and obviously the YouTube channel also. So other than that, and then with Kaiju Ramen, issue 11 is up for pre-order, and I actually pre-ordered my issue.
10.
So 10. So yeah, I got mine, so I can't wait for that. So yeah.
Adrian, shameless self-promotion.
So before I do my shameless self-promotion, I did want to highlight something in the chat real quick that we need to do trimmers.
That's
I'm not gonna lie.
I love trimmers.
We are definitely gonna do trimmers. I'm honestly probably should just add to the list next year because I want to do trimmers too. Because I love this. I love trimmers. We
I wasn't sure
trimmers
who he
for
was
hours.
addressing that to.
Well, of course, I have my YouTube channel, Godzilla Train 1090 on YouTube, as well as my same handle on my Instagram as well. I mean, I have a Twitter, but I don't use it, so no, go to Twitter. But besides that, of course, just posted my video last week of the trendy Space Godzilla. I have another review coming next week. I think it's going to be Rhedosaurus, but I don't know. It depends what I feel like putting together. And of course, to promote the next show coming up, something that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. We don't have a host for it yet. We still need to figure that out. But we will be discussing Zone Fighter.
Zone Fighter!
Zone Fighter! Love Zone Fighter.
And if you haven't seen Zone Fighter, it's a doozy. I had to talk about Zone Fighter and get into that. And of course, like Eric said, make sure to join us on Facebook on the Monsters of Attitude Collectors group on Facebook. Aaron?
Jojo?
Oh, Jojo.
Well, for my personal channel, you can find me at Married to Kaiju, where I am the rudest, crudest way you will see Godzilla, Power Rangers, and other Toku properties reviewed, unboxed, and ultimately collected. And I say rudest, crudest way because I don't edit. I don't know how to edit, and I don't have the time to learn how to edit. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't understand it. So I do my videos in just one take, but I got a lot of cool shit, so I think you guys will really like it. I just did a review of the X plus 30 centimeter Space Godzilla. Had a bunch of new subscribers over the past couple weeks, months. So thank you guys so much for that. Please continue to subscribe. And also the like the other guy said, the Monsters with Attitude Facebook group. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see all the stuff. Because at minimum, we're doing one show a month. We might even do 2, maybe even 3. We got bonus episodes we've been talking about. So, So yeah. And good job, Michael. It was a great show today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Coming from you, Joe, that's a really good compliment. That makes me feel
you
all
did decent
warm and
at best. I'm trying to be nice. Let's okay.
that makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Speaking
warms
as
my
his
cold,
co-host,
cold
Joe,
heart.
I know.
That warms my cold, cold, vicious heart. Aaron, shameless self-promotion. You got anything going on, man?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, other than the Monsters with Attitude YouTube and Facebook group, I have my blog, Alas Kaiju, which honestly is I need to post. I need to post on it more. Last time I posted was in March, and it's not like I don't have a lot of things going on with it. It's just that I actually have several things, the half baked going on, a bunch of reviews and articles I need to finish up and just post already. I need to stop being such a perfectionist. Well, other than that, there's also we're trying out this new little monthly series here with the Monsters with Attitude YouTube channel called On the Record, where we have short, like 15, 20-ish minute episodes talking about stuff we don't usually talk about on these longer streams. Stuff like, hey, should you keep your boxes, or what kind of collector are you? So go ahead and check those out. And I try to be monthly with them. Have not recorded the next one yet. So if any of you guys want to hop on with me, or maybe I'll ask one of the other guys like Cody or Samson, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah. And welcome back, buddy. You've been gone all summer.
Yeah, that's right. This is my first
You've
show.
been gone, yeah.
My last
you've been to
one
Japan,
was.
You've been all over the place.
Yeah, I've
All
been
over the
traveling all
world.
summer. And it's just really nice to be on the show again, just because I haven't been on since March,
Absolutely.
which was that show was when I hosted. It was the Megalon anniversary, the 50th
was, yeah.
anniversary, yeah, which was fun. But it just seems like such a long time ago. So it's just nice to be back on and have fun with you guys again.
Yes, we missed you, Aaron.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for everyone watching, and remember to love monsters and embrace the attitude.
Embrace the attitude.
Yeah,
Shout out to
see.
Oscar. Hey, Oscar. I didn't say hi to you earlier.
Oh, hey,
Oscar.
Oscar. We forgot
Hey.
about
Hi,
Oscar.
Oscar.
Sorry. How could we forget Oscar? Oscar, embrace the attitude.